The next day, day 9, 4th of January 2009, 5 more Palestinians reported to be civilians killed in Gaza City after artillery shells lands in a shopping area. The death toll rises to 477. Ban Ki-moon, the UN Secretary General, says he is deeply concerned about the escalation of violence in Gaza, and the Israeli authorities refuse to allow, breaking the Geneva Conventions, the International Committee of the Red Cross emergency medical teams into Gaza for the second day, reported by the International Committee for the Red Cross. And that is why they are now being accused of committing war crimes. Also on this day, Mexico, which joins the UN Security Council this month as a non-permanent member, appeals for an end to the hostilities and an immediate ceasefire. Also, Spain urges Israel to end the ground offensive in Gaza and calls on Hamas to stop firing rockets. France condemns the Israeli military offensive, but Israeli troops were seen operating just outside Gaza City, the coastal strip's main population area. The UN Security Council fails again to reach an agreement on a Gaza statement, according to the French ambassador. According to the United Kingdom's Foreign Secretary David Miliband, Israel's ground offensive into Gaza shows the urgent need for an immediate ceasefire. Witnesses in Gaza report on this day that Israeli troops have entered urban areas and are conducting house-to-house searches. The latest death toll 473. A main Gaza water line has been damaged on this day, cutting off supplies to 30,000 people at the Nuseirat camp. Day 10, 5th of January, the United Nations says at least 20% of the 507 fatalities are women and children. The Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, addressed the Arab world, calling on its leaders to hold an emergency summit and take a stance on day 10 of the conflict. Israeli tanks and troops advanced to the outskirts of Gaza City. The latest death toll 509, 2,450 injured. Day 11, 6th of January, the death toll rises to 590 and 9 Israelis who have died on the other side. Barack Obama, the US President-elect, says he is going to have a lot to say about the war on Gaza after his inauguration. Until then, he's not saying anything. Denmark's foreign ministry summons Israel's ambassador for explanation of the bombing of mobile clinics run by a Danish charity in Gaza. Day 12, January 7th, Venezuela expels the Israeli ambassador in protest over the war on Gaza. According to a Reuters report, the death toll continues to rise. 660 people, 2,950 injured. Now the Israeli military confirms it has paused military operations in Gaza for a period of 3 hours a day to allow Palestinians to access aid. However, on the same day, 5 houses in Gaza are hit by Israeli air attacks, 10 minutes into Israel's 3-hour pause in hostilities. Shelling heard in Gaza during Israel's 3-hour ceasefire to allow Palestinians access to aid. Day 13, the Palestinian death toll rises to 700, 219 children and 89 women, 3,080 people are wounded. The UN Secretary General condemns Israel over the death of UN workers also in Gaza. Day 14, Zibi Livni, the presidential hopeful for Israel, says that Israel will act in its own interests to protect its citizens, despite UN resolutions calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. Suggestions that Israel may be using white phosphorus in Gaza after several explosions, but no confirmation from the Israeli army. The Israeli army, however, uses tear gas in a bid to break up demonstrations in the West Bank over the continuing offensive. the death toll rises to 789. Day 15, the UN Secretary General expresses his disappointment that the resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire has been ignored. The death toll rises to 804. The UN says 15,000 people are now internally displaced after fleeing their homes. In London, more than 100,000 people take part in a protest against the war in Gaza, and the Human Rights Watch spokesman tells Al Jazeera that they are convinced that the Israeli army is using white phosphorus chemical warfare. Day 16, 11th of January, Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert says that the military is closer to fulfilling its goals in Gaza and will press ahead. Palestinian medical sources say the total number of Palestinians killed during Israel's offensive has reached 879. Jordan's King Abdullah urged the world to force Israel to implement the UN resolution calling for a ceasefire. Day 17, the 12th of January, reports of street fighting in northern Gaza City as military attacks continue into a 17th day. 905 Palestinians are dead, 4,100 of them are wounded. Ban Ki-moon, the UN Secretary General, demands an end to the Gaza fighting, saying too many people have died already. Agencies need $100 million in emergency aid for Gaza to aid the wounded and to help in the destruction, to help recover from the destruction. Day 18, Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian president, accuses Israel of aiming to wipe out the Palestinian people by refusing to end the war in Gaza. Reports say that Greece may have blocked a shipment of arms from the US to Israel, but the Pentagon says it will find another supply route. Latest estimates put the number of Palestinians internally displaced by the Israeli assault at 80,000. Day 19, the President of the UN Generally Assembled, Miguel Dioscoro Brockman, condemns Israel's killings of Palestinians in Gaza offensive as genocide. Loud explosions rock Gaza City. The sky fills with plumes of white smoke. Revised casualty figures: 1,001 Palestinians killed, 4,630 injured, including many women and children. Day 20, 15th of January, heavy fighting in Gaza. United Nations says its headquarters in Gaza has been covered in red-hot shrapnel. Death toll in Gaza rises to 1,045. Black smoke billowing over Gaza City as Israel carries out some of the heaviest bombardment of the Palestinian territory in 20 days. United Nations Relief Agency spokesman says that the Gaza headquarters was hit by at least 3 shells containing white phosphorus. The hospital at Tal el-Hawa in central Gaza is bombed with 500 people inside. Day 21, 16th of January 2009, yesterday, latest death toll in Gaza, 1,133, 5,200 injured. The Palestinian Statistics Bureau says 20,000 residential buildings have been damaged and 26,000 people are living in shelters. Today, day 22, the director of the Emergency Department of the Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza says the death toll stands now at 1,199. 410 of them are children, 108 are women, and 118 are elderly people. Also today, the United States and Israel signed an accord yesterday aimed at stopping the smuggling of weapons into the Gaza Strip, a move Washington hopes will lead to a durable ceasefire and to end Israel's 3-week offensive, meaning that they have stopped the tunnels that lead from Egypt to Palestine, saying that they are going to stop the movement of rockets and bombs, but in reality further stop the movement of food and medicine to the people of Palestine. So my dear brothers and sisters, this is what has happened. Now you know. If you didn't know, And now you see how serious it is and why it is that we need to come together and do what we can do as Muslims and as concerned human beings over atrocities that affect us as human beings all over the world. And especially for our Muslim brothers and sisters, and especially because of the number of children and women who are involved, and especially because of the treachery of the Israelis in this particular conflict. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant to the people of Israel, the people of Palestine, peace. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remove from them the difficulties that they face. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring the unjust to justice. وَالْآخِرُ دَعْوَانَا الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Assalamu alaikum.